It is a nice rainy evening here in the Netherlands. Today I wanted to talk about Romeo and Juliet. Yes, I know. Enough already have been said about Romeo and Juliet and Shakespeare. In general, he's celebrated on every channel on BookTube. Well, and not by me yet. So we have to close that gap. And I want to talk about Shakespeare as a writer. What can we learn from him? And I hope it's a lot, because he survived so many centuries and still as famous as everyone can wish for. Alright, then first thing first is how to read it. It's very difficult. It's Old English, and especially if you're not a native English speaker, it's almost impossible to get through your brain. You have such a pushback. You lose all the enjoyment, and it gets a bit hard. But they are good, usually very expensive publications that put very useful notes next to the text, explaining different phrases of things we don't understand, because they are not part of our reality anymore. And this one even has this cute little illustrations that, just if you don't know how a toad looks like, here it is. Very nice. Anyway, of course I get them from second-hand stores, and there is a couple of them. This is Oxford School Shakespeare. I have Macbeth and As You Like It from them. Very nice. Makes it much more enjoyable. And then we have this one, the Arden Shakespeare. Also nice covers. This style I like less, because it's not next to the text but under. But still, there is enough of explanation, and it's just enough for you to not to lose hope, and understanding what's going on there in the play. This one I liked very much. And this is my copy of Hamlet. This is printed by Modern Library New York, and they have a quick summary at the beginning of it. So if you just want to understand the general plot, you can read through the summary first, then read the play itself, and there is also some notes explaining to you certain parts of the play, why they're important, what do they signify, what kind of relationship those people have, because it happened at the court, Danish court, which might have some customs and that are not very clear to us. This is also Arden Shakespeare. This is the Oxford Shakespeare. I must say all those printing houses sell e-books as well, but they are so expensive. I rather go and buy a couple of paperbacks at a second-hand store. Yeah, and then just the thing is, some students, English literature students, must read it, and that's how it works. That's why they are printed and sold for such a price. This one I liked in particular because it is thrift editions, Dover thrift editions. I have King Lear from this publisher, and I liked it very much because the amount of notes, it's not overwhelming, it's just enough. Just one or two words that you probably need some clarification on, and not too much explanation. and then it just doesn't break momentum. You can still keep on going, still making progress through the play. So, but first you overcome this barrier of Old English. Then you can come to the point of enjoying it. I promise. I promise it's gonna happen. All right, coming back to Romeo and Juliet, I wanted to talk about this specific, at least that was the first idea that came into my mind, because it's so well known, and I have kind of contradictory point to make about it. After reading it, I suddenly realized, and it surprised me, and also in a good way, that the story is not about tragic love. It's about anything but tragic love. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll touch on this later. First of all, I was thinking about what was the reason for success, and still is the reason for success. And here I must contradict myself right now already and say it's because of the tragic love story that is within it. I think right now it is not something that moves us so much, because we have such a distance, such a historical distance between ourselves and 1600s when it was written, and also it goes about the noble society, which has their own rules and customs and traditions we do not understand, not so much anymore. Well, at least I do not. I come from a family of potato diggers. But still, two people in love, two people misunderstood and fallen victims, some family matters. It is something easy to relate to. And if I'm talking to someone, they probably know the plot of Romeo and Juliet. Not everyone knows the plot of King Lear or Macbeth or any other plays. But Romeo and Juliet, they probably know the plot, they know the outline of what happened there. And I think back then, it also contributed to a success of the play significantly, because it introduced a good conversational topic. You know, imagine you were born in a noble society, high society, somewhere in 1600s, and you do a lot of social calls, you invite people over, you have dinner parties, and engage with people you know or do not know so well in a conversation. What are you going to talk about, right? There's no television, reading is not a hobby of everyone, hunting only for men, warfare is also mostly for men, politics are very boring, conversation, weather, yes, but it ran out of news quite quickly. And then you have theater. Everyone goes to the theater once in a while because that's very available sort of entertainment. Also, social world within each box in the theater, and that's appropriate to bring up also in the presence of ladies. Everyone can chip in and tell their own impression, their own emotional response to the tragic love story. So I think that is one of the secrets of success of that particular play. Now, Why I think it is not at the center, not as a vision that Shakespeare had while writing it. Because the tragic love story could be replaced with something else, and it's just a vehicle through which the main idea has been delivered, and the main idea is listen to your children, basically. Be kind to other family members, even though they're just children. They still should have some degree of freedom, because that's the conflict that's happening. When Juliet comes to her parents, or they come to her room and announce that they found her a fine gentleman to marry, she says, no, please don't, let's not do this. I'm not ready. And her father's reaction is, you must be mad. You must be mad. Why are you contradicting your father? If you do not come to St. Peter's Church on Thursday, I'm gonna drag you there. And her mother says, don't talk to me. You heard your father, that's final. And why I think this is the main idea, this is the main conflict that's happening in the play, because we learn it from the tragic ending. The tragic ending is not a death of two young people, which is also happening, but it is the death of two houses. Both houses, Montague and Capulet, are ended. Those were their only offsprings. They don't have any future anymore. They're done for it. They extinguished, eliminated their own future for this, because they were, too stubborn, too immersed in their own idea of what's right and what's good for the family, to listen to their children. And that is the outcome they have to face. They killed their future with their own hands. So instead of tragic love story, there could be something else. There could be Juliet wanted to learn arts, and her parents didn't want to listen to her. So instead of going along with her parents' decisions, she runs away and tragically dies somewhere, killed by bandits on the big road. That could as well be that. The main idea is the same. There is a misunderstanding between the two generations within those families. And of course the vengeance between Montague and Capulet, which it was not extraordinary to have this bloodthirst between arch enemies, between two different houses of nobles. But Shakespeare just tells his viewers, look, and where did it bring them? It brings them to the ruins. Yeah, he is a moralist. He delivers a simple lesson through the play, and it's always so simple, almost magical. That's one point I wanted to make. And the second is, what is interesting, when you read the play, it feels very dynamic. Of course, the play is dynamic because there are no long descriptions. The plot is moved by dialogues. Most of them are dialogues, a little bit of action, more dialogues. So it feels dynamic, but also within different plays, Romeo and Juliet stands out as a very high-pacing plot. So I was looking into that. Hey, let me interrupt myself here. If you're wondering about those beautiful pictures, they're made by yours truly and available at an Etsy shop, which could be found by the link in the description below. We share the shop with a friend of mine who makes adorable jewelry. You can see it all there. Thank you very much. So I was looking into the story structure, and I think Shakespeare used the traditional folk tale story structure, which is the beginning when a problem is introduced, then a journey, the main character, the hero is going somewhere, a lot of the times to a different world, and then he returns with loot, with a solution for the problem. But it also can have a tragic ending. It doesn't have to end happily. For instance, when we look at Jack and the Beanstalk, there is a happy ending. There is a family that is introduced, which is very poor, and Jack and his mother live off the milk that they sell from the cow, and one day the cow stops giving milk, so there is a problem how to survive. And then a magic solution comes. The cow is exchanged for magic beans that grow and transport Jack to a different world where he finds wealth. Then sometimes it takes 3 tries to achieve what the hero wants to achieve, because 3 is a magical number. It's either 1 or 3. It's never 2 or 4. And then he comes back, and for Jack, for instance, he comes back and they live happily because they now have the chicken that lays golden eggs and the magical harp. They're good for life. But sometimes also, if you remember the myth, the Greek myth about Orpheus and his wife, Eurydice, when the wife is bitten by a snake and she dies, Orpheus comes down to Hades and talks to Pluto, the god of the underworld, asking him to let his wife come back to the world of the living. And he agrees, but on one condition, that all the way to the threshold, Orpheus cannot look back. And his wife is just treading behind him, but he's so impatient, he's so in love, he wants to see her immediately. So he looks back and loses. The condition is not met. He comes back home alone. His wife stays in the underworld. That can happen too. Which is important for the play structure, which I want to look at. What happened in Romeo and Juliet. At the beginning, the Romeo is introduced and he is in search for love. Immediately he declares to be in love with Rosalind, who doesn't love him back, and he's very distressed. And then he goes on a journey to find love. He goes to the masked ball that is organized by Capulet. And he's not invited because he's from this enemy house, but it's a masked ball, and he has attire of a nobleman, which is good enough, so no one minds. Then he meets Juliet, and he finds the remedy for his problem. So this is the love, and she loves him back. So what is left is to bring her back. And just as Jack, with his beanstalk, he tries to steal her away. They secretly go into a priest he knows and get married secretly. This is the attempt to steal the bride, right? And they plotting how to get away, how to be together afterwards. But something interferes. Juliet's parents want her to marry Paris, and she knows that they would just annul the marriage with Romeo if they knew. And also Romeo is a persona non grata because he just killed her cousin. Yes, very tragic. But in terms of the plot development, what happens is at that point there is an obstacle that the hero has to overcome in order to come back home with his lute, meaning Juliet. And basically it cost him his life. So he tries to find different way how to overcome it, and at the end ends up dead. That controversy is, it was so hugely successful because of the tragic love story, but the tragic love story is not the main point that the author was making, and that if you look close enough, the structure is very simple and falls into places like beginning, obstacle, and ending. Yes, I think that's all my personal discoveries from that play. If you have more, I would love to read about them in the comments, so let me know. And I thought I would do an afterthought, a special rubric to talk about, by the way, sort of things. By the way, I was shocked when I checked Romeo and Juliet on Goodreads, and I scanned through a couple of reviews. I was shocked by the reactions. All right, if I group them, there were two big groups, which I can try to address. It's like reaction to a reaction, quite weird genre, but we're gonna try. But first of all, first big concern that was voiced is, why do we celebrate a story about teenage love? Like, why do we read about some teenagers that's supposed to get married at 13? It's disgusting. You shouldn't let that sort of literature to be out there. And the second point, quite close to the first one, was the same. Like, it is a story about teenage suicide, which is a serious problem right now. So why do we take it so easily? It's teenage suicide happening on stage, and we go there and we watch it and enjoy this play. All right, I'll try as much as I can to address those concerns. First of all, you might not notice, but since 1600s, life of a noble person or just an average working class person changed very much, and our society has changed as well. And the most radical difference is that our childhoods become longer. So in 1600s, you were not a child on 13-year-old. was a good age to get married and start producing children. Yes, it sounds inhuman, but this is the truth. It's called historical development. It happened, and we are very grateful that it did. But we cannot right now judge it from our point of view what happened back there. Yes, it was wrong, but it happened like that. I mean, it was normal back then. So you need to do this mental translation. Imagine they're not 13. They're young people. Whatever in your head is appropriate, not lawful, let's say not appropriate, lawful age to get married. Let's say they're 18 or 20. It's still very early to get married and run away from your house. But that's approximation of how it would translate into today's reality. And the second concern as well, you mixing up realities. Yes, teenage suicide is something that we shouldn't take lightly today. But for Shakespeare, suicide was a way to demonstrate the tragic lesson. In his plays, if you read a little bit more, if they're comedies, at the end everyone marries and find their long lost children or parents and become very happy. And if there are tragedies, everyone dies. That's the baseline. It is when he just says, all right, let's look at the lesson. Like, Macbeth wanted to be a king. He committed a crime and ended up dead. The lesson is, don't commit crime. Maybe seems quite plain and not very entertaining today, but that's his moral. That's how I read it, at least. The same thing happened to those two young lovers. It is the way to say, look, you ruined that. I mean, they could not commit, we mentioned they did not commit suicide, but they just tragically died because they were running away from their house and there was a storm in the sea and the ship they were on sunk. Maybe like that. But suicide is sort of a shortcut to say, here on stage, everything is happening very dynamically. We begin, we end, and here is a pile of corpses. That's the result of your actions. Learn from it. That's basically what he's saying, if you ask me. So, yes, every year, every decade, we move further away from realities that are described in those classical books, and it becomes harder to relate. Yes, it also becomes harder to just read and understand what's happening there, and it now requires much more research, time, effort to really drink it all up. But we have something in common. I was just reading the book written by a Japanese writer, Sei Shonagon. She lived in the 10th century Japan. So there's a huge difference between us, geographical, as well as cultural, as well as historical. It is more than 1,000 years between us, but in the little notes about things that make one happy, she wrote, getting hold of a lot of stories, none of which one has read before. That's something that made her happy more than 1,000 years ago. And it's something that also makes me happy. So we are strangely united through the world of literature.